know there's a phrase around it. When somebody is dating and it's not so good, but they think if they get married, it's going to make it better.
Bullshit.
So here's the thing.
Let's have kids and fix the marriage.
Oh my gosh.
I thought that I can outwork a problem. Okay, I just work and I don't really know what's wrong or what's happening, but if I just work hard enough, I can outwork anybody. I'll keep working. But if you don't know more precisely what's going wrong, then you're just getting better at getting worse. You're accelerating your failure.
It's kind of funny when we went down the rabbit hole to see like the things that people are saying, and some of them just aren't really entrepreneurs. But with our lived experience with over 55 years of entrepreneurship across different continents, definitely covered the ground the best that we could do within the six. So the first one that Amanda mentioned is
it's always easy to make that distinction. And I am 100% guilty of not being able to make that clarity all the time.
I'm Lynn.
I'm Amanda, and this is The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
We're cutting through the fluff and cracking open what it really takes to build a business and life that you actually want.
No gurus, no gatekeeping, just real talk, big action, and the badass energy you need to scale and slay.
Some episodes, it's just us.
And sometimes we bring on powerful guests with stories that'll hit home.
Either way, this is not about playing small.
It's about going all in.
Let's get after it. Hey there, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to The Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. Today we're talking about the 6 things that actually separate entrepreneurs who make it from those who don't. And this is not hustle. This is not motivation, not some like secret hack that you saw on TikTok. We've watched this play over and over and over again, not just in our own businesses, but in the people that we work with individually, as well as in the BA. And in all of these instances, it comes down to many things. But today, 6 non-negotiables, which are clarity, discipline, ownership, systems, decisiveness, and consistency. So today we're breaking each one down, showing you what matters and what doesn't, and what your day is going to look like at the end of the day. So let's get into it.
Let's be real. We actually jumped on this bandwagon because we know it's a trending topic and we can talk about this shit all day long. So I think they're calling it 6 entrepreneurial principles. And it's kind of funny when we went down the rabbit hole to see like the things that people are saying, and some of them just aren't really entrepreneurs. And that's okay. Like, you know, you do you, boo. But with our lived experience with over 55 years of entrepreneurship across different continents with variation of different types of businesses, from brick and mortar to virtual to all kinds of shit. I think these 6, as much as we have a lot of principles, I think these 6 cover the ground the best that we could do within the 6. So the first one that Amanda mentioned is clarity. And I'll add to that, clarity before action. It is super important for us to be clear before we take steps. I literally was just having a conversation with a potential prospect who wants to hire me, but has to wait for a certain X amount, a certain KPI that they have to hit. And in the meantime, they're hiring all these people. Then I was like, look, I know you're waiting for X, which I'm not going to say because that might give it away. I know you're waiting for X in this particular thing, but you're going to be doing all of this work over the next month or 2 months before we start working together. And you do not have clarity, hence why you're putting out fires, hence why you are just kind of like in chaos mode all the time. And essentially you are going to be wasting time, you're wasting money, you're wasting energy, you're wasting the motivation, kind of oomph behind things. And so this point actually reminds me of, I know there's a phrase around it, but we'll say the whole situation, the analogy of when somebody is dating and it's not so good, but they think if they get married, it's going to make it better.
Bullshit.
So here's the thing.
Let's have kids and fix the marriage.
Oh my gosh. There's so much around clarity that, I mean, I feel like I can keep going. I'll pass over to you, but I know I want this point back because it is clarity before action.
100,000 million trillion %. People aren't necessarily failing. They're busy in the wrong direction. They're getting better at getting worse. Absolutely readily admit I used to do this, and not quite to the extent that I'm describing now. However, I thought that I could outwork a problem. Okay, I just work and work and work and work, and I don't really know what's wrong or what's happening, but if I just work hard enough, I can outwork anybody. I'll keep working. But if you don't know more precisely what's going wrong, then you're just getting better at getting worse. You're accelerating your failure. You're by not really knowing what's working and what isn't, and having clarity around the action that you're putting in rather than just doing it for doing sake. I think of it as like a litmus test. Like, does this move me towards, move the business towards what I'm trying to build? Or is it just more stuff that I can do? And we talk about this a lot, especially in entrepreneurship. A lot of people are, I don't want to say everybody's a go-getter because they're not, but they're motivated in some respect. They have a passion and they're motivated around that passion. And so they will fill their days up with more stuff because they've been told they need to do this. Oh, so-and-so on TikTok said this, and I read this on this blog, and I listened to a podcast, probably not ours, but some other podcast that told me this. And they just keep stacking on things to do and never actually testing whether or not those actions have clarity for their business and their specific goals. It's just action for action's sake. And sometimes it's just doing stuff for doing safe. And it's not even really putting in action. It's just putting in work. It's not really driving you anywhere. Again, a hamster in a wheel, which we talk about a lot too.
You talked about, is this moving me forward? And I need to I had a bodily reaction when you said that, because so many people think that they are. Like, we see this all the time working with clients. They think that they are because they think that they have clarity, but they really don't. Because clarity isn't a one-stop shop. Like, you don't just do it once. You're constantly doing it over and over and over again. Amanda and I do this every time we do a launch, every time we do an event. We sit, we break everything apart. We look at analytics. We look at all of the things. We get really clear on what needs to change, what needs to stay, what needs to be amplified, etc. And then we take the action. We're actually usually taking things away. We're refining. There's just so many things. We also talk about, especially during goal setting times, although we set goals all the time. In fact, right after this podcast recording, we're actually going through our reverse engineered goals for the next 6 months. We do it all the time. We are always breaking it down, but there's an aspect too of really learning that, and I think you touched on this, is that, and I know that this is something that Amanda has definitely worked on throughout our partnership, is every opportunity isn't our opportunity to take. And when we have absolute ridiculous fuck around and find out clarity on things, it helps us make that decision easier. Absolute clarity makes decision making exponentially easier. You're moving away all of the clutter so that way you can be laser focused in on, but don't just have clarity on the actions. Make sure you have absolute clarity on that end thing that you want, the vision, the life, the being and who you are, because that will only strengthen your actions and clarity in all of the kind of the goals and the things behind that.
Clarity 100%. And I know I say 100% a lot, but I absolutely believe in it. That
we do say it a lot.
If you think about buying a plane ticket, you're looking at two options. Option one, it has a 15-hour layover in Timbuktu, and option two is a direct flight in first class. Clearly one's better, and so it's easy to make the decision. That's obviously,
clearly,
I wish all...
Because some people actually might like the 15. Maybe they want
20-year-old me liked the 15-year-old, the scenic route. True.
Maybe they want to go for the day into wherever you just said, Timbuktu, and go and sightsee. So it has to be your clarity.
Very good distinction. And yes, 20-year-old Amanda would have taken the 15-hour layover to save $2 and go see a new city in a random country. But 40-something-year-old Amanda wants to get there faster and more comfortable. So, but it's two separate things. Neither one is wrong. I many times took that path A in my youth, but now it's not that one is wrong or that one's better, but it's clear to you and the path you are on and the direction your business is going. When it's clear, it's an easy decision. If it's not clear and you're like, well, there's this other flight that is going through here and this one routes here and this one is $500 off or that, and you start comparing all the things, then suddenly that clarity ticks away. The ultimate goal might still be clear. I want to get to this location, but it's so much easier to make that decision and to make that decision well with the trajectory of your business in mind if there is clarity around every aspect of it. So it does, and it's not easy all the time. It's not always easy to make that distinction. And I am 100%, again, 100% guilty of not being able to make that clarity all the time. Like I will have 50 ideas in the span of 3 seconds, and I have to clearly identify what's going to get me where I'm going to go. Thank God for Lynn. Keep me on the path. But
hopefully things
it's
are
a real
clear as
thing.
mud at this point. Lots of information. But listen, like, I mean, all of this is valid, but I love that saying clear as mud. I do have a task for you though here. This is one place to start, and it's something that we used to do all the time, part of our networking organization that we came to, but how many people cannot clearly explain what you do, who you help, the problem you solve, and the customers you help, that anybody can understand it? Like, how many of you can actually do that? I would challenge you, the majority of you cannot. I literally know this for a fact because we teach this all the time and we see it all the time. Anyway, clarity.
The next aspect we want to talk about is the discipline. And we discussed this in a podcast previously, talking about the boring aspects of business and that motivation isn't going to get you anywhere. Motivation is unreliable. And you can go back and listen to that one. We'll talk a whole nother 20 minutes on just that topic. But it shows up maybe on the best days 20% of the time, the best opportunities 20% of the time. The other 80% or sometimes 90% is discipline. Doing it because it's Tuesday, not because you feel inspired, not because you feel stoked and ready to do it and the world's in your favor. It's talking about like showing up even on a bad day, even when you don't feel great. We've talked about this in another episode about the nervous system regulation. It's sort of the same thing. Like your business shouldn't be reliant upon you feeling good about it, because that ain't gonna work for 99% of your days.
Yeah, no. You got to do the work. Do the work. Work. It's exactly. You have to put in the action. And yeah, it's kind of wild because having that discipline is, I mean, you should have it sourced from somewhere. So that could be, and a lot of people lack that connection. So it can help with the discipline when you actually have it connected to something to help you do that work. And that could be your why, that could be an emotional point, that could be something that's in the future. It could be lots of different things, but there is no substitution for doing the work. You want to be about it. Don't think it. Feel like I'm from the Missouri state. Show me. The show me state. Show me. And this is big because it's interesting too that a lot of people feel that they do the work, that they have the discipline. Sometimes they might have discipline, but they're doing the wrong work, right? We just talked about that with clarity. But then there are a lot of people who are in this mindset because they're overwhelmed and they're burnt out and they're this and they're that. Or they have this story that I've even seen uber productive people in the story in their mind that everything is just more difficult because it makes them feel better and makes them feel more important. And at the end of the day, no, because they're not actually having the discipline. They're not actually doing the work at the level that they should be doing to hit the goals that they want. I mean, they're doing work, but are they really doing the work at the level and in the right direction to hit those goals? And so depending on somebody's mindset, I see it all the time that they've tricked themselves, that they feel like they have the discipline, that they're doing the work. And really, they're not. They're not. When they audit their calendar, when they actually look at the rabbit holes that they went down and this distraction and that distraction and, you know, how long they spent, even if they got it done. And sometimes, worked with a couple of people, sometimes they'll get that one task done within 30 minutes, but they feel like they've taken 3 hours or 3 days to do it because they were down different rabbit holes. That's not the discipline part. Again, the clarity part. You have to have that clarity so that way you know, and honesty with yourself. I often say the only person you're lying to is yourself. And man, it is insane. I see the most motivated people that feel like they have discipline, but yet they are putting in 2 hours really worth of work and expecting a return on investment that is outrageous at the level that they're at. And that's just strictly not going to happen. So you have to do the work, but do the right work, have the discipline to put in that work.
I've also seen people push all the way into the martyrdom where they blow up everything that they do. It took me so long to do this and I had to work so hard and I'm so important and all these things and like,
100%.
woe is me, my life is so hard. And they've actually gone to the point where they're hyping up that everything they do is harder than it really is. And everything they do, it takes so much more. And this is why I'm the owner, because I can do all these hard things. When you really break it down, you're like, none of those things were hard things. And you're relying on that, like you almost need the attention, like you need to feel like you're needed, when really as you increase in your entrepreneurship, I believe it's much healthier to feel like you aren't needed. We want you to get to a place in your business where you're delegating and where you can step back, you can hire people who are better at things than you, and you can work on your zone of genius. You can work on the things that are CEO things and then pass other things off. You want to kind of make yourself less needed, because that's the whole point. You don't want to be a slave to your business. And then in order to do that, it's the consistency that's going to compound. It's the motivation will never compound. There's no motivation compounding happening in entrepreneurship.
And consistency also beats intensity. Intensity is great to like get it going, but you have to continue to feed it to be able to go. And that's where that discipline is in doing the work. I do want to give an example just because we are on our podcast and we're approaching our 200th episode, our 5th year. We put in the work. Like so many people stop. And this is like, there have been times where we've kind of like been like, man, can we keep going? Can we keep talking about different topics? Can we keep this up? And you know what? Yes, because it's part of our plan and it's part of our ecosystem. It didn't get done by itself, especially 200 episodes. That was consistency. That was doing the work. That was discipline to say, we're going to do this. Even writing our first book, like we could think of, you guys know the people who live in the, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, or I want to be this, I want to do that, I want to do this. Yeah, but they never do. You see them the following year and they haven't done shit, but they feel like they've worked like a gajillion hours in the year. They don't have discipline, they're not doing the work, or they're doing the wrong work.
Yes. Next point, own everything. No blaming the market. It's not the economy. It's not the client. It's not the team. It's not, I had a bad day. It's not, I spilled coffee on my shirt and I've been cursed. Most of those, it's not that. Ownership is not about fault. It's not about finding the fastest scapegoat. It's about who decides what happens next. And as the CEO, that's you, boo. That's you. It's more than just a mindset shift, because as productive as you can be, and we'll talk till we're blue in the face about productivity tips and so forth, it feels different when you adopt the ownership, when you actually own what you're doing. And I'll never forget, my first production job, I used to be a television producer, for those who don't know that. And my production manager, Cheryl, love you. She sat me down within a week of starting, because I had never done television production. It was just like, here, you're going to be a producer now. And they took a chance on me and it all worked out. But in that first meeting, she told me, she's like, if anything goes wrong on set, it's your fault. So if it goes right, cameraman did a great job. The actress did a great job. The editor did a great job. Everybody else gets the credit for how great it went. But if it goes south, it is your fault. And you need to own that responsibility, and not to the toxic point of everything happened is all my fault and oh no. We get people who swing the other way, who will use it in a toxic way. But as an owner, you really have to take ownership of everything, and not in a woe is me way, but in a true entrepreneurial, life is happening for you, not to you. You've got to own everything in your business if you want to see it grow in any kind of long-lasting way.
Yeah, I can remember that principle since I was young as well. That's 99% true, because I also think that we have to have discernment on what is not ours. In that scenario, 100% agree. But then also when you're owning everything, you own what you can. I have a saying that I've said forever: no excuses, only solutions. Like, it has been a tagline of mine, I don't know, over a decade, I would say.
Over a decade.
Yeah. And it is absolutely like, okay, this is the situation. What do we need to do? So where do we need to go? that is a form of owning it, owning that this is the solution. It's not saying this is my responsibility. Obviously, when it is your responsibility, you take ownership of that, but you also can own the situation. This is where we're at. Okay, how do we move forward? What are the solutions? Leaders solve problems, they don't assign blame. I'm going to say that again. Leaders solve problems. They don't assign blame. You are supposed to be the leader of your business. And if you are finger pointing or victimizing yourself or martyrism, all of that stuff, and leaning into that side, which Amanda was talking about, then, you're miserable. Sorry. I feel for you. And I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the situation. But that's only going to hurt you. But owning what you can and understanding that you might not always be in control of what happens, but you are in control of how you move forward from it, how you control your responses, how you take action and develop a solution outside of that. So, and it's interesting because I know that this is about entrepreneurship, but I can't help with this one to think about like all the work that I did with me having cancer. And that was like a big part of it, like really digging in, taking ownership where I need to take ownership, no matter how difficult it was in my life. And just saying like, okay, I couldn't control, the cancer happening to me, but I damn well can control what happens to me afterwards, how I respond. I couldn't control if I lived or died. I lived, by the way. But obviously I can control my attitude and the things that move forward. And for me, I feel like that was a huge aspect of me being here today and being healthy in the way that I am. And so taking ownership of the things that you need to take ownership of. And as a leader, sometimes it is of the whole team because we didn't step in or lead the right way, but it's not ownership in a poo-poo way. And, I'll just leave it with, when you learn to take ownership, that's actually, in my opinion, where true growth starts to happen, because then you are saying, okay, I'm a part of this. How do I move past this? Versus it's kind of like life is happening for me or life is happening to me type of thing. I want to believe that life is happening for me. And so I get to take ownership of my life. Everything happens for a reason. Everything that I did brought me to this point. And so I continue to grow through that.
All right. Number 4, we talk about this all the time. Systems. Build the business, not the bottleneck. If you can't run the business without you in it, it's not a business. It is a job with extra steps and a ball and chain and terrible pay and horrible hours and a terrible, ununderstanding boss. Okay. Systems, documentation, and delegation aren't someday tasks. They're not things that you put off to like, well, one day when we've hit $200,000, then I can delegate that. No, these are what makes growth possible at all. We were just talking about this with somebody who's in our Badass Amplifier about all these bottlenecks that they created. Like I have to do this, and they had this huge list and a lot of things were important and had to be done. And they could only be done by her. So she was essentially strapping herself down to her desk that she had to do those things because there was absolutely no system put in place where she could hand it off even if she wanted to. Even if she was ready to delegate mentally, there would have been absolutely no way to do it because everything lived in her head, even like which people to contact in the business for this and which customer she had to outreach for and at what the timeline was. Literally all of that lived in her head and on this like chicken scratch notepad that she had in front of her. And I'm like, there's no way that you can duplicate yourself. And her ultimate goal is to hire some new people this year. I'm like, you can't hire them if everything lives in your head. There's nothing to give them. Like they're just going to sit there and you're going to end up doing all the work. And that's when what owners start to say, well, it's just faster if I do it myself. It's faster if I do it myself. I know I've said it many times, but we want to challenge you, our listeners. What's one thing only you can currently do in your business? And why is that? Because there are things that only I can do in the business. And I'll tell you, it's a control thing. There are things that only Lynn can do. It's because she's just way better at it. There are things that our VAs do. And there are things that our videographer, there are things that people do because they're better at it. And we are trying to systematically, again, systems, weed out the things that are us only. Yes, we can do them if we need to do them, but we shouldn't be the one to do them. There's a difference there.
Yeah, you're good at them too. And I'm a control freak as well. But I'm definitely way past that point where I'm like, please, let's give it to the team. Although it does come back up every once in a while. Just a couple of extra points here is one, I cannot talk about this point without giving a shout out to my brother from another mother, Stefan from Sweden, who would always say systems create freedom. And I 100% agree. Systems do create freedom. They give you the ease and the patternization so that way you don't have to put as much thought and effort into things because it's kind of a rinse repeat. And maybe it's a reset or a revise or kind of a revamp, but it's rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Also, you spoke about bottleneck, but I want to also and talked about how some people feel like, oh, it's easier if I do it myself, which I still sometimes get into that mode. I mean, I think it's like innate.
It's natural.
Yes. And I mean, that's a whole other story, but it also caps you. I remember when I owned a franchise, if you haven't been listening for long, go back to some of the early ones, I would talk about it, but that's, I owned a franchise. We were training, coaching, consulting, and then I became the COO of that company. But essentially the business model when you bought the franchise was you put on this 15-week course, you put on this one-day class, you put on this one-day class, and then you feed this 15-week course. And it was just one of you. Maybe you got a couple of coaches or consultants eventually with you, but the whole business revolved around that one person. They can only do so much. And so I remember talking about as a franchisee, but then also when I became CEO, that was one of the first initiatives that we really sat down and just kind of like said, listen, like it's not sustainable because if you're out, your business is out as well. If you're not building the SOPs and the systems, it makes it harder for somebody to come in and like take over in that. So it's never too late to build a system or build a SOP. Heck, with AI nowadays, you can just talk to AI, talk them through like what you do, and it will say, oh, here's your SOP from a framework, and then you continue to refine it and add to it, etc. But that way you can have somebody come in and actually do that job. You know, it's been really interesting working with Amanda. I had to like convince her to get VAs in the beginning, and now we have many VAs who help us with our business, and it's been great. It's great because it forces us also to put things, you know, she's more technical than I am. And so like having her map out the technicality of this particular SOP for the podcast and this and that. And then I come in and can give my 2 cents and where maybe I shine a bit more or whatever. When we bring on somebody new, they're able to step into that role and like get the ball rolling versus then we don't have to spend as much time like hovering over them, training them. I mean, there is still that training and that kind of like, thanks team, you guys are awesome. That training and that kind of like rhythm that they find. But if we didn't have some of these processes and things in place, then it would be much more difficult, much more strain on us, which still is something that we would need to do. However, a lot of business owners have a hard time bringing on new people, and they don't bring them on to be able to like be successful because they don't have these systems or SOPs in place. So it's hard because it all lives in their head.
And I think one of the best things about bringing new people on is that you get to look at your systems again from fresh eyes.
100%.
Because there are so many steps that I forgot that I just do intuitively. Like, oh yeah, and then I log on to this and I grab this code from here and I put it into this and it takes adding somebody to your team who doesn't know, and they're like, oh yeah, I have just been doing that in my head, and if I died tomorrow, nobody would have any idea how to get into anything. They would have no passwords. They wouldn't know where the code was. They wouldn't even know where to look. And that's a great thing to really think about. We're not trying to, cut ourselves out of the business, and we want to make sure it's sustainable long term and that we can hand these things off. And so being able to teach it to somebody else really helps show the strengths and weaknesses in your own systems. And as you have to explain it to somebody, just like you're doing your elevator pitch, if you can't explain it to them, that means your system is crap. If you have this SOP written down and everyone looks at it and they're like, I have no idea what this means, your SOP is crap. It's not going to go further. So it's a great way to look back at it. And again, it is how you create freedom. We are all about not being chained to your desk. It's how you actually get your time back. And the big pushback that I have seen in a lot of our clients is that initial fear of like, oh, I have to do so much work to train them. And it's just easier if I do it myself. And it's faster if I do it myself. And that's because your system isn't clear yet. And once you get that system really locked in, that's where you get that time back. And you got to put in a little bit of work to get the payback for it. That's sometimes a hard thing to let go. You have to initially invest the time and the energy to train somebody or to create the system. But then once it's implemented and it's rock solid, then you get the freedom.
All right, number 5, decide faster. Decide faster. Indecision is expensive. The time in which you take to make decisions is ticking away at your cost. Perfection delays progress. You want progress over perfection. Decide faster. Sometimes you just got to make a decision and roll with it and learn through it. And that's okay. You learn, you adjust, you keep it moving, keep it going. This is huge, huge. There are so many different success stories. Ryan Reynolds is one of them, but that are online about this, like about companies that make a decision and dive in. Like they don't blink at their decision and it has made them millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now, we're not saying be a dumbass and don't think about the decision. I mean, sometimes you got to just throw it to the wind and be like, let's see where it goes. But you learn on the go, you adjust, and you just keep it moving. Keep it moving, sister. Keep it moving.
It has been my theme of the year. Decisive is the new productive. Perfection is expensive. It costs you time. It costs you momentum. It costs you opportunities. As a recovering perfectionist, I will tell you that is truth. Yeah, you can gather information. You can do all the things. But if you're not deciding and then executing and then measuring and then adjusting later, you're wasting time. You're wasting so many opportunities. I always think of back in Wall Street days, you see all the traders and they're just screaming at each other and doing like quick calls and making all these last minute decisions. Like I'm going to trade on the trading floor. You can't sit around and think about it. You've got to make that decision. And the people who make money on Wall Street are the people who make the decisions faster. They are yelling and screaming and deciding faster and making those split decisions. And I think a lot of this comes around this fear of failure. I think there is a huge fear of failure. Sometimes it's a fear of success, but businesses aren't collapsing from one bad call usually. Sometimes there are terrible calls, but you're not making one bad call and then everything dies. It's businesses are stalling from years and years of not calling it at all. You spend weeks deciding something that isn't really that important. And in all of that decision making, you've lost the opportunity. So we want to think about it. Do a gut check for yourself. Can you use the moment to just decide faster? And what is really going to happen if your decision was wrong? Because most decisions, in my experience, it's not the decision itself that's wrong. It's the action you put in afterwards that becomes right or wrong. I can decide to move to Thailand. And if I make terrible choices after that one decision, it's not deciding to move to Thailand that was the decision that was wrong. It was all the other things that I put into action that were wrong.
I'm just kidding.
It was me. Or where I go, there I am. But it could go so many ways. I mean, I could have decided to stay where I was, and that would have been the right decision had I put in the right actions afterwards. So it's not really the decision that's holding you back. It's all the action steps. And again, you're waiting. You're waiting have all these open loops. Decide and move on. Decide and move on.
All right, number 6. Play the long game. Play the long game. What did you call it?
I think I call it consistency. Got to be consistent.
Yeah, I guess so. You need to be consistent in the long game. This is what I want to say around this. First of all, business is a marathon, not a sprint. So these like get rich overnight schemes, the like do one thing and like, yeah, how many people actually hit the lotto out of how many people play? Like it's the same kind of concept in business. Like, come on, business is a marathon. You got to just keep putting in the work. We talked about all the things above. And it is, when you think about it, your reputation continues to hopefully grow. It's growing. It is growing, either good or bad, but your reputation can be one of your greatest assets. Relationships compound over time if you nurture them, right? Integrity doesn't happen overnight. That's built by you showing up. That's built by you following through. That's built by the longevity of like the actions, the saying you'll do things and the doing the things, right? That consistency of it. that is what builds a business. When you play the long game and you're not short-sighted, when I was thinking of this one, I was thinking of, and I know I use this analogy a lot, but in sports, the best sprinters are taught to not look at the finish line. They're taught to look at the finish line 50 yards or so ahead of it, because in our mind, we start to slow down automatically. Our body starts to slow down before that finish line because we see that is the finish line. So when we envision that finish line is further, it makes our bodies continue to work at full capacity all the way through. And so I cannot stress this one enough. And I think it's also because I'm very relationship and reputation driven, like that integrity part of it and all the other things I said. But this one is so important, especially with businesses nowadays. Like, yes, you can create so much so quickly with AI, and AI is a godsend, but you need to make sure that you're playing the long game with things. Even if the long game is a year out because you want to sell the company in a year, okay, but you reverse engineer from that long game backwards and just realize everything that you're putting in can compound in a good or a bad way.
I love that we put this one last because we just talked about decisiveness, and the speed of implementation is something we talk about all the time. And speed does matter, but your reputation compounds longer than any tactic. And your relationships, your integrity, your trust, that consistency, these are the actual long-term assets of your business. You can make all sorts of really fast decisions that are not going to sit well with people in the future. And I mean, maybe it was easier to make those back in the day where there wasn't instant internet shaming. But even still, to this day, like that red flag gets planted and people talk. Even if it wasn't blasted on the internet and you didn't get canceled and everything seems fine surface level, it's long-term. That's a long-term asset in your business. And, it's that quick win that costs you the trust versus a slower win that has to build the trust, and that will in and of itself build trust. You've got to choose. And we know that based on experience, that's 55 years of it, not just our own businesses, but our clients' businesses, you've got to put in that long term, that long game with the idea that you're going to be around, rather than this idea of I'm going to, scam people to get the quick dollar, knowing that down the line, it's going to come back and bite you, even if it's years and years later, even if it's in just subtle red flags and trust. It doesn't always have to be some giant Ponzi scheme. It can be something small, but your business is your reputation. Your business is trust. Your business is relationships. Even if you don't like people, you need them to make a business.
The consistency of what you do, though. I mean, adding back in the point that you said, like that consistency of all of the things in the long term. Because here's the thing, if you are a horrible person and you're masking it in the long game, like people are going to see it, right? So your mask will eventually come off and they'll see it. And then that will have its own cause and effect, we'll say. I'm hoping that all of you listening to our podcast are good people, good business, honest, ethical. You can play in the gray area. We're happy for that. but with that being said, like that long game is super important, because it's otherwise, going back to the first point, how can you have clarity on where you're going if you're only looking at today? How can you have clarity on where you're going if you're only looking at the month? Like, you have to have a bigger long-term game, and just know that, like we both said, like things will kind of compound and roll based on that.
Absolutely. We distilled it into, I think I used 6 words. So you have the clarity, you have the discipline, you've got the ownership and systems. What did I say? Decisiveness and consistency. Can't even remember what I ate today. I had to remember 6 words for 20 minutes ago. Look at me. But really master those things, master those 6, and you're not going to be just running any old business. You're going to be building one that actually runs without you, without burning you out, and which can become a legacy. And that's what we want. We don't want you to just have a business for business sake. We want you to have something that's a legacy. And it may not be that you're going to give it to your family, but there's an impact there. What are you trying to do with your life? It'll be much better if you're following these 6 principles in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, even if it's just to make a shit ton of money and like build something that you can sell or, just let dissolve, whatever. Okay, then that's cool for you too. But these 6 principles definitely come into play. We'd love to know which one stood out to you and which one's the easiest, would you say, or the one that you feel like you have nailed, and which one do you need to be working on? And that will change, by the way. That is fluid. It's not a one-time thing. You might have a couple of them that drop off easier than others, but out of these 6, which one is the easiest for you right now, or you feel like you have nailed? And which one is the one that you really need to work on right now?
Drop it in the comments. Let us know. Make sure you are subscribing to us on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you're listening, so that you never miss an episode, particularly because we have that 100th episode coming up very soon. And we want to make sure that you're the very first one to hear it. If you know someone who could benefit from these lessons today, make sure you are sharing our podcast with others. And until next time,
get after it. All right, badasses.
Listening's the easy part.
Now go make it happen.
We'll see you next time on The Pursuit of Badasserie.